Hey guys, this is Hunter Levine, and thank you for listening to the Captains Collective, where we are working to sit down with different captains and leaders in the fishing industry. And in each episode, we get a chance to hear from someone new, learn about their story, their approach to business and fishing, and also pull out lots of great tips and information. On today's episode, I sit down with Lionel James of Liontail Adventures and Kaylee Lavach, who works in social media and marketing. Lionel and Kaylee are located in Destin, Florida, and in this episode, we get to hear Lionel's story, which involves running around the world and a quick run in the MMA world, how Lionel and Kaylee are building their business together. We talk about marketing, social media, and we get to hear about Lionel's approach to what he calls fun first fishing. There's also a great section in here I found helpful in the podcast about how to avoid other people's negativity and place your energy in what really matters. I hope that you guys enjoy. Thanks for listening. This is the Captains Collective.
Success is a gift. Excellence is the only thing to strive for.
Out in front of those, tried to eat it. He tried to eat it. Hit him. You got him. He's on it.
2 butt caps off the rods, filled them with tequila. We took a shot and out we went.
There ain't no getting into it after that. You're hooked. It's a bad habit.
And all the time Flip's he's standing there ready to go for a tarpon. And he turned around, he says, "You talk so much, you're like a senator."
He's out there. All right, we're going to take up the line.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for being on the podcast with us today. We really appreciate you making some time and coming out here. Could you just give us a little bit of the background of how you got into fishing and then also how you guys met together and run things today?
Okay, yeah, man, I appreciate it. It's actually a really humbling feeling. Like the guys that you've had on here before me are some of the like greats in the business. So I never actually thought I would be on a list of guys like that. So I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, of course.
Fishing wise, man, it's kind of like everybody else, but a little bit different. I mean, I grew up doing it, but first and foremost, I was born in the Philippines. My dad was in the military. Shortly after that, my dad moved to Melbourne, Florida, which he was stationed at Patrick Air Force Base. And that's where my dad took me fishing for the first time. We ended up catching a small catfish, and I have this really cool picture of me and my dad. I'm standing right next to him with a catfish. And that's where it started. But shortly after we got to Melbourne, my parents went through a really, really bad divorce. I was about 6 or 7 when they started going through the divorce. And at that time, we were living off base. And if you walked about 6 blocks, there was a gas station on this side, a stop sign in front of it. And then on each side of the road, there was just like a little water runoff that held brim and like sea turtles, or not sea turtles, but snapping turtles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when my parents, like I said, it was a really ugly divorce, and I'll be totally truthful about that. When they would get into like these arguments, I would take my sister, and me and her would grab a loaf of bread, and we'd go to this little water runoff, and we'd stay there the whole time until my dad or my mom come and got us, and I would just catch brim with a cane pole over and over and over.
How old was that?
I want to say I was about 6 or 7, and 6 or 7, and my sister was 4 or 5. And that's where I started to like learn that I could do this on my own. Shortly after that, my dad got full custody of me and my sister. Now, this is like the late 80s, 88, 89. So my dad was a black father with 2 kids. So he's very, he's very broke at the time. So he started taking on odd jobs. So I didn't really get to spend much time with my dad. So for us to go fishing, he would pull me out of school on like a Monday or Tuesday, and that's where I got my quality time with my dad. He would take us to the beach, and we'd go catch Nerf sharks. In Melbourne, we'd go to Cape Canaveral and fish for redfish, and then we go over the Piney Causeway and go under that, and we'd fish there and that's how I got my time with my dad. And on Sundays too. Sundays, the morning was mine with him, the afternoon was my sister's, and then we would have family dinner together. And every other weekend, I won't say I have to, but we went to stay with my mom, and my mom had her own like cleaning business. So in Melbourne, she would clean a lot of these houses in Suntree, and Suntree was on a golf course, and I would take my pole and I would go bass fishing. had no idea what I was doing, but I would catch these bass next to all these little gators and all that stuff, and that's where I would start to get my independence. Shortly after that, I want to say I was probably 13. My dad moved to Destin. He got another assignment. And we weren't in Destin a very long time. We were there for about 3 years. But living on base is kind of the same situation. You know, it's pretty safe, and we didn't have the worries about what people have today. You know, you can send your kid outside and not worry about it. So after school, we were on base housing. I would go to this place called Ben's Lake, and I would just fish, man. I didn't really care about sports at the time. I didn't really care about what was cool. That was my outlet of, you know, my parents are still going through it. I'm moving.
Is that middle school and high school?
I think I got there right around 5th grade. It's hard for me to remember the time frame because between 1st and 5th grade, my dad was TDY so much that I was either in this school or in that school. I would go back and forth between Pensacola and Melbourne. Pensacola for 6 months, Melbourne for 2 months. Pensacola because my dad was active duty, and he was gone a lot. So when we got to Destin, it kind of came. He was a little bit more secure as far as like we weren't gonna move for a while, but he was still really busy. You know, we still try to go fishing in the lake, but I understood it. I understand it now more than ever because a single dad or a single parent period trying to support 2 kids is very, very expensive.
Yeah.
So after school, instead of playing football or baseball, I would take my stuff. It's a funny story. I would take my stuff and I'd walk down the street and I would just fish until the sun went down, and I'd come back home. My dad would never worry about it, pack my stuff, get ready for the next day, go to school, do the same thing over and over again. But as a boy, most of us were in trouble a lot. I wasn't really great at school. Mm-hmm. And I did get whoopings back then, but my dad finally figured out that, I mean, you could whoop me. Like, that's fine. I'll take the whooping. Just don't make me stay inside. Don't ground me. Like, if you took fishing away from me, that was the worst punishment you could ever have for me. Mm-hmm. So we stayed at Eglin for about 3 years. My dad, and I think that was the early 90s, so he had the Gulf War, so he's back and forth from that, and he finally just got to a point where he asked for one last assignment that he wouldn't have to leave anymore. Because, I mean, my dad missed, I don't know how many Christmases, Thanksgivings, and all that stuff, you know, the sacrifice of being a military parent. So around 12, he got one more assignment, and that assignment was to Anchorage, Alaska. So that's why I call Anchorage, Alaska home. I finished middle school, my last year elementary, I think, middle school and high school, college, so on and so forth there. So he got his assignment in November. Now, imagine being 11 years old and going from beaches of Florida, driving all the way up to Alaska, like the change that you had, you know what I mean?
And you guys drove up there? Like a big road trip?
14 days of me, my sister, my godfather, and my dad. And going in November, it was still 60 degrees here. I mean, you know how winters in Florida are. Yeah. And then each state just got colder and colder, and you got to see snow. And I never knew what a moose was until I got to Canada, and we saw one like with his tongue out of the back of a trunk because it was hunting season for him. So we got to Alaska, and then I guess my parents' separation kind of built my independence because when we got to Alaska, I didn't really need to make friends. It was a hard situation to make friends because I got there right at Thanksgiving. So I was in school for 2 days, and then we went on Thanksgiving break. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't have anybody to talk to. So on base, a military base is really set up for families to get comfortable really quickly. They understand how the process is and how hard it is. So I went to the outdoor rec center. My dad took me there, and you couldn't go fishing unless it was ice fishing. So once I got to Alaska, I started ice fishing. Once the snow melted, I started fly fishing. It was huge there. You had grayling, rainbow trout, salmon, all that stuff. But the dangers of fishing by yourself in Alaska is there's moose that are like 5,000 pounds. There's bears all over the place, and there's wolves. It's so you're constantly fishing.
And everything's frozen.
Yeah. For like 9 months out of the year, it's pretty cold. But that's where a lot of it came into play. That's where I really started to like gain my own identity in fishing and what I like to do. Then I went after in high school. I'll tell you a funny story about high school. So high school is where I became really athletic. The summer before my freshman year, I was getting ready to start my freshman year. I figured out what football was, and in Anchorage or in Alaska, when you played football, it started out really early. And the benefits of starting football really early was that it was the football team, it was the volleyball team, and it was a cheerleading team that was at the school first. So I was a teenager now. I wanted to play sports and be around girls. But long story short is that I would always come into the preseason very, very out of shape because I felt as a teenager, I just spent 8 months in school. I didn't need to spend my summer lifting weights. Like I needed 2 weeks to get in shape and then I was fine. So every football season I came into football like completely out of shape. And my coaches hated it because I was really a natural athlete. Like,
what position did you play?
I played quarterback.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I played quarterback, and I got a scholarship to play wide receiver, but they just hated me. So I end up, and this is back where only your closest friends knew what you did for the summer. You know, you told everybody what you did for the summer after you got back. But the reason why I came back out of shape is because, one, I didn't feel like it took me 2 weeks to get in shape. Two, I wasn't going to spend my whole summer lifting weights and then miss an entire fishing season in Alaska because essentially you only have 2 months. You have June and July, and that's about it. That's not about it, but you have June and July where you don't have to worry about snow, right? May, the snow is still kind of melting. It's getting warmer. August, the leaves are changing. There's snow on top of the mountain. So at that point, you're like, I only got a couple more weeks until it snows and everything's over. And now you're waiting for 9 more months to go fishing again. So that's where really fishing started with me. It really was a base of my dad, fishing with my dad. And then he was really busy, and I understand that. So I just did it on my own, So
sounds like it started as like an escape. As
a
way to relax and sort of have some you time.
And how did you two meet?
Who, Kaylee and I?
Yeah.
You want to tell the story?
The girls always tell the story better, and I've learned from personal experience, I'm about to be in my 5th year of marriage, that anytime that you can refer the meeting story to the girl, it's always going to be better.
Okay,
right?
okay, we'll do that.
I think
we'll
you just did the right thing there. I don't know. That's a free tip.
Is that the rule? I didn't even know that.
No.
We met a year and a half ago when he found me online through mutual friends and kind of looked around to make sure that I was single and then asked me if I wanted to do a business meeting to talk marketing.
In those DMs.
Right. It slid right in.
Somebody needed that that right there. Somebody needed that tip.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, she's a marketer. That's her background is. That's what she's doing. And I was really looking for
a cute girl.
Yeah. I was really looking for somebody to take over answering my phone and taking care of my website and all that stuff while I could just focus on, because I was losing a lot of customers. So I found her through, like she had a mutual fan. I was like, well, damn, she's kind of cute. Let me holler. All right. And I set up a lunch meeting, and we did talk about it, but then I probably stalked her for like...
Yeah, but for me, that business meeting was all business. Dating wasn't even on my radar at that point. So it's really funny because he texted me nonstop after that, and I kept thinking, who is this guy? Like, why won't he leave me alone? And then persistence paid off, and after a few weeks of talking, I let him take me on our first date.
Oh, that's a great story, though. Right. And you were both in Destin at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then did you grow up in Destin, or?
No, I'm originally from Nebraska.
Okay.
But I did grow up fishing with my dad and my grandpa. So, as young as I can remember, I had a fishing pole too. Except in Nebraska, it was bluegill in a lake, and it was 3 fishing poles lined up, and I would reel it in. My dad would take it off. I'd run to the next one, reel it in. My dad would take it off and rebait it. I'd run to the next one. So Lionel kind of does the same thing for me.
Yeah, that's great though. And I love, we'll include in the show notes you guys kind of account. But I love that you guys have fun fishing together.
Absolutely.
And you don't see that. I don't see that as much, kind of out. A lot of people tend to kind of separate their relationship and their fishing. Like, how have you guys done that over the past year? Just kind of trying to incorporate your relationship, but also what you do on the water.
I want her to be part of everything that I do. It's flat out. So the fact that she loves to be outdoors, and even when she gets on the boat and it's sunny, like, she doesn't necessarily have to be fishing. She just wants to be, one, we want to be together. And 2, she just wants to be outside. So it helps. But the funny story is that when she goes fishing, she puts this tremendous amount of pressure on me, right? Mm-hmm. Right? She says, I say, well, babe, what do you want to catch today? And she was like, well, shit, I'm sorry. She's all right. She wants to say, oh, I want to catch something big. Like I only want to go after big fish. I'm like, well, that's not how it works, but let's go.
Do sharks count?
No.
Oh, he's hooked me up to a shark before, and then he told me I asked for it. So
I saw the other day on Lionel's account, somebody was reeling in a shark, and you were like, hey, you asked for it. You asked for it. Yeah. But I didn't know if that counted because that's a little less pressure.
That's like tuna or big amberjacks
those are my favorite. Yeah.
Like
redfish.
Big black drum.
Yeah. We do a lot of sight fishing for redfish. That's the main thing that we both like to do, because obviously we see it, we see the fish, we hunt it down, she hooks it, and I get to watch her.
Yeah, and it's neat. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, about how you guys kind of work and manage the business together. That's a pretty common thing that a lot of guides, as a couple, they work together to support the business and to give each other kind of a helping hand. But how did you get into the guiding part? Because you were in Alaska, you fell in love with fishing. And then where did you go from there that kind of led you to being in Destin?
So after Alaska, I got a football scholarship to a small D2 school in Minnesota. The same thing happened. I would come back. These guys were paying for me to go to school, but I would come back in the summer time out of shape. So I was going home and I was fishing. I was like, so I ended up dropping out of college and joining the Air Force. But the way that worked is I dropped out 6 months before my 21st birthday. So when I went home back to Alaska, it was January, February, and my dad told me, listen, you got 6 months before your 21st birthday. That means you got 6 months of free rent, and then you're out of my house. So I ended up joining the Air Force, and I traveled. My first base was in Texas. Then I went to California, and then from California I went to South Korea. But in each one of these transitions of my life, I was still fishing a lot. I was still in Texas trying to catch a bass, in California trying to catch sharks and tuna. Like I was still doing charters, because my fishing the aspect of it, the love of it was always there. And I felt that the more that I fished with different people, the more that I fished different places, the more experience that I have to rely on later in life, as far as like, if this happens or if this happens, well, I'll do it like this guy and this guy. Then I went to South Korea. South Korea was a really eye-opener for me, because it's a crazy fish market there. But what I did most of the time was every weekend or every other weekend, I would go spend the weekend with a family that wasn't very wealthy. And we would just sit there and have conversation. And they would take me around the town and to the local fish markets and all that stuff. So I got a different experience in there. And that was in 2006, and I stayed there till 2007. And then in 2007, I got stationed back in Panama City. I started noticing a lot of people doing the skinny water redfish stuff. And so I started fishing some more off of piers and all that stuff. But at that same time, I had got into fighting, MMA. And to kind of go backwards a little bit, while I was in Korea, I was also boxing. So when I got back, I was looking for that competitive edge to like I still wanted to fight. You know what I mean? I got into it really good, but I still wanted to fish. So it was a kind of a tie. So what I did is I kind of put fishing on the back burner, and I made it a Sunday thing for me after my training, was for me to restart the week. While I was fighting, I had this little plastic boat, had a 12-volt battery with a trolling motor. So on my days off from the gym, I would take it and I would put it in these little bayous and I would learn the area. And this was like a plan of mine, because I always knew that I wanted to quit and start my own business. But right now I was taking the chance of making it into the UFC. And I was really, really close, and I tore my patella tendon, and that kind of like made me realize that, hey, fishing is probably it's the way to go. Mm-hmm. I tore my patella tendon in 2014, I think. 2014, 2015. And when I did that, I didn't miss fighting. I didn't miss the aches of the gym. I didn't miss the 8 weeks of training for $1,000 fight. You know what I mean? I missed fishing. So I was like, well, I'm going to heal. And that's when I started my Instagram account. I'm going to heal, and I'm going to start learning, like just researching businesses and entrepreneurship and the market here and what the market's missing here and what's popular in Destin and what's working for Destin charters and what's working for Miami charters, what's working for Tampa charters. I mean, I put a lot of work into just researching and see what's working and what's not working, and how can I build an avenue there. So I guess the chartering really started from me hurting my knee in 2014, 15. and saying, hey, I need to do something else. I need to have a backup plan, you know? Man, cause I was really good. I was on the road, before I hurt my knee I was training for a title fight, and it was crazy. I didn't even hurt my knee actually in the gym. I hurt it running on a Monday, slowing down. My, tail tendon snapped, ACL snapped, and it was really a non-contact injury. So that's really how the chartering started. I took this idea from getting hurt from fighting and saying, this is what I really want to do. This is what I wanted to do as a kid, you know.
And what was the first step that you took when you decided, okay, here I am, I want to start guiding? What was the very first thing that you kind of did to try to get that off the ground? Do you remember?
Well, I guess the first thing that I did was that once my knee healed, I started to build a network, and I started my Instagram account, but I wanted people to see that I loved fishing and make people want to come fishing with me. So what I did was I started going on road trips to fishing tournaments in Louisiana, all around Florida, and just kind of building that network of friends. And what I was doing is I was posting photos of me, like really nice photos of me with fish, or just I made my photos really about the fish, and people started to just kind of, man, I would love to go fishing with you. How can I do that? And it kind of just started to like, well, another guy would call, and another guy would call, and I was like, well, maybe I could do this full time. So what I did is obviously I got I did the due diligence, and I got my business name. I did all that stuff.
No, I think a good thing to point out too is that you wanted people to know that you loved fishing, but you also took a lot of friends and family fishing with you.
Right.
So it wasn't just look at me on the boat with a fish. And when people started to see you with other people was kind of what snowballed into how can I come fish with you? And I want to have that experience.
Right. So people seeing these photos of me with just fish, it made it attractive to them, because a lot of people didn't even know where Destin was at as far as my network goes. And I'm gonna put that disclaimer out there. Like, everything that I'm talking about is my experience. They had no idea where Destin was at, where I was at. They just wanted to come fishing with me. So I would some guys would come in, and we'd just go fishing on the pier, and we'd catch this redfish or this sheep's head or whatnot. And then I would take them on the beach, and we'd catch pompano, or we'd catch sharks. And it kind of just started the snowball effect of like, well, maybe I could do this. I'm already looking for an outlet to get out of the fire department right now. But how can I do this 5 years from now? How can I quit 4 years from now and still make the amount of money that I'm making with my full-time job? And chartering was it. So 2000, it's 19 now. So 2018, everything was started to pick up. I was doing one charter here this summer, and then it kind of just got bigger and bigger the next summer. And it came to last year in February, where everything I did the finances, and I said, well, this is the amount of money that I'm missing because I'm at work. This is what I made from chartering, and this is what I make with job A. And it equaled out, right? So I made the decision to quit, but I didn't make the decision by myself. Like I said, we do everything. So when we talked about it, when I presented Kaylee the idea of like, man, I really want to quit, babe. I don't want to do this fire thing anymore. And it's no shot to any firefighters out there, but for me, I was done with it. I had seen enough. I had been through enough that I was losing sleep over some of the calls that I've been through. I was done. I told her the idea, and she was like, well, just quit. Like, we'll figure it out, right?
I think that's our motto. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out, And that's kind of how life works. You're just going to figure it out. And I took the leap. But when I told her that, she was the first person to not say like, well, what about your insurance? Or what about your pension? Or what about your retirement? I was like, I really don't care about that. You know what I mean? Like, I had been saving. I had a savings plan from the time that I joined the military, the time that I got out. I had a couple investment properties, so I set myself up right. And that's another one thing that I really want people to get for this thing is set yourself up. Plan, have a plan, So I just up and quit. Now, there's a lot of factors between the time that I quit to now that helped me out. Like I was, I think it was 2016 or 17, I was on the show Addictive Fishing. That kind of just fell in my lap. That was a really good help, pushed it. So I was getting a lot of phone calls that I was missing to book those trips while I was at the fire department. And once we quit, it kind of just, everything kind of just took off from there.
One of the things that, as I sit here and kind of listen to you talk, that's interesting is like I can see how a lot of these factors shape the way that you run your business.
Okay.
So for instance, the way that you traveled around, you had to learn all these different fishings.
Absolutely.
You're a well-rounded angler. I
Thank
see you
you.
target a lot of different species and be able to put people on a lot of different types of fish. But then even some of the stuff with Ultimate Fighting that you've mentioned to me about how you pull that into your business, understanding sponsors. Could you just talk a little bit about how some of these elements from your history have shaped you as a fisherman and as a guide?
Okay, so with MMA, my coach always told me, one of the things that always sticks to me, he says, as an MMA guy, you're not going to be great at one thing. You're going to be really, really good at a lot of things. So I took that and I kind of just implemented that to my business. I don't want to separate myself and say, hey, I'm just this guy or I'm just this guy, because then I think it puts me in a box of just having these kind of guys that want to go fishing when the box is open to anything. So I want to be able to accommodate myself and my skills for everyone, right? And if there's a really, really, really serious guy that says, hey, this is all I want to do, I have the connections to put you in the right hands. You know what I mean?
So referring them off to another guide.
To another guide, absolutely.
If somebody came to you and said, hey, I really want to catch a sailfish.
Right. I can tell you who to go with. Or if I wanted to go deep dropping, if they wanted to go deep dropping and catch swordfish or something that this is not, I know a little bit about it, but I can't really do that for you. Mm-hmm. Then I can refer them off to that. But where MMA really helped me is that in the MMA business, you have, when you're preparing for a fight, you're preparing for like 8 weeks, right? In the beginning of the business, you have a number and a number. My number was 200 and 500, which was how much I was getting paid for it. The 200 was just to show up and you made weight. The 500 was if you won the fight. So total of $700 for 8 weeks of training was not a lot of money.
Yeah. Do the math on the hours.
Yeah. It's like 2 cents an hour. So where you made your money at was ticket sales and selling yourself. You wanted people to come watch you fight. So you had to go to these network events, sign autographs or do these interviews or whatnot. But then sponsorships were huge, right? So I was getting $200 if I put your logo on my shorts, $400 if I put your logo on my shorts and shirt, $600 to $800 if I put your logo on my shorts, shirt, and my banner that went behind me before the fight started. So I was like, well, this is where I'm going to make my money. And then I got 20% of ticket sales if I sold the tickets. So I became really good at, because I wasn't going to get paid $700 for one fight. So I was really good at going out, meeting businesses, and a lot of businesses told me no, but that never discouraged me. I'm not a no guy. Like, okay, you said no, I'm going to go on to the next guy, ask him. So I was really good at, one, selling myself to these businesses and asking for a sponsorship, and two, creating relationships with people that they felt that they can come to me and talk to me about fighting, and they can talk to me about this and all this, and they wanted to come see me fight because now they had a personal relationship with me. You know what I mean? I made myself really open as a fighter to let people get people attached to me, and so that's kind of what I did for my business. You know,
networking. Yeah.
Right. Networking is huge. In the wintertime, I won't even get to that. We'll get to that later. But that networking aspect is really huge in building those relationships over time. Because like for me, if I just say, you know what, Hunter, come watch me fight, you're gonna be like, why? I don't know you or anything like that. You know, like I want you to understand. Like now, if we had a relationship and I say, man, I'm getting ready for the fight, I'd really appreciate you came. I think you support me on that road. Yeah. And so that's
I definitely would come watch you fight.
Not right now, man. Old, out of shape. I got a bad knee.
That makes it even more fun.
Right. But
in a backyard somewhere.
You'd probably win right now.
No, not me.
So I took, and for me, I did a lot of research, and I just kind of sat back and I just kind of watched how things were. And I had two amazing coaches that taught me the business of fighting, the business of running the gym. But where I made my money at was the sponsorships and the ticket sales, right? Because in $700, one, that was nothing. The promoter is going to get a percentage of that $700, and then your gym gets a percentage of that $700 because, I mean, your team trains you, they help you get ready for it. Your coaches, that's, you know, because you're not, right now I wasn't paying a gym fee. So at the end of the day, I was probably getting $400 for my first 5 fights. Like, that's a lot of work for nothing. So how do you make money off of it? Sponsorships.
And how have you pulled that into fishing? Because I've met with a lot of guides that do pro staff and they have different kind of deals structured. Like, what does it look like for you to to build that out well as a captain?
Okay, so what I took from fighting is kind of selling myself and building an experience and a relationship with my clients and anybody with how do I say this? Anybody that follows me. I try to answer and talk to everybody as possible, but I took me getting sponsorships and I transferred that to me getting pro staff. Because I mean, when you start in the fishing business, you got to buy tackle. Tackle is expensive. You know, you want to buy it one time. You want to buy the right gear that's going to last you a whole year. That's going to last you 500 different people using it. So I took that hustle and I reached out to everybody. I built a sponsorship letter. I built videos to send to these guys. And I probably got told no 2,000 times. But that one time that somebody said yes, I ran with that. I did what they asked me to do as far as promotion and all that stuff. And they gave me 60, 70% off a reel. And then if I bought so many reels, they gave me one free. All that stuff adds up, you know. The ticket sales, I guess, kind of that adds into where if I'm selling a ticket because I'm selling it to you to come watch me fight, well, I want to sell you now to come fish with me. And how did I do that? Well, for me, Destin has, I think it's like 300 charter boats. So I was trying to figure out how do I break into this charter boat business
and stand out.
Exactly, right? So I started the Instagram account. Like that was my way.
And were you early in on that before?
I think so. I think when I started my Instagram account, it was right when it was like getting ready to get big, and Instagram didn't have all these algorithms, so it helped me grow. And I was really kind of, how do I say this, like humbly? I don't even know if that's a word. Right.
It is.
Right.
It counts.
All right. I'm trying to be as modest as possible. Like when I started my Instagram, there wasn't a lot of guys on social media. That what I noticed about Destin and the fishing business is that a lot of folks were homegrown. You know, they had been there their whole lives, or their dad had been doing it. So how can I compete with that? Because I can't put that on my website that I grew up here fishing, but I still love to fish. So does that make you better than me per se? Or like you should still come fishing with me? I think so. You know. So Instagram was my way out. Social media was my way to start to build a clientele base without having to live there my whole life. You know, I didn't have friends in high school that were telling, you know, man, well, I know a guy that goes fishing. Yeah, you should go with him. Or I didn't have business that I was on.
Yeah, that network is huge. Referral network of people you grew up with, and the guy that you went to high school with now owns a restaurant. And he's
absolutely,
and that was your space to come in. And it's interesting because I think one of the things I appreciate you is when we talk, it's like, you know, you do YouTube and Instagram very well, and that's how you've broken into the scene, how you've built your business. But there's other people who, you know, they might choose to build their business a different way. That's fine, right. You know, but the important thing is like, how do you find your voice in your space, especially when you're in Destin, which is a super competitive market.
Super competitive.
What was the biggest challenge for you coming into a really competitive market with guides?
Breaking the mold.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because everybody, it was a circle, just like I think every industry is from established people. And when anybody new comes in, the biggest challenge is just getting over the hump and in with those people to where they not only knew you, but respected you as a captain.
And that was my biggest thing, is that my dad always told me, you don't need anybody's approval, but you want every man's respect. So I wanted every man's respect at the very least. I wanted people to see that, hey, I'm not just a charter guy coming in here for a year to do it as a write-off, or that this is what I really want to do.
Is that common there in Destin? Like people just kind of flaring up, flashing the pan guide?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Because it's such an easy way. If you're a state water guide, it's such and a bay guy, it's such an easy way to start a business because you don't have to invest the $20,000 into a federal permit. You know, like if you invest $20,000 in a federal permit, like you're in it. You know, so anybody can go on sunbiz.org, sign up for LLC, have a boat, and say, hey, this is my charter now, buy your name, and start.
Well, I would say there's a lot of part-timers or weekend warriors, you know, that have the boat that go out on the weekends. But so it's also letting the rest of his fishing industry know that wasn't him. So while he maybe
Right.
started like that with the fire department, you know, fishing was a passion of his. That was his whole life. He didn't just buy a boat and decide tomorrow that he was going to take people fishing.
Exactly. I mean, I've been doing it since I was a kid. I've always known that this is kind of what I wanted to do. When kids were out at their football game or baseball game, soccer game on Saturdays, I was watching when the first addictive fishing episode came out. You know, Roland Martin. Roland Martin did this. So I kind of knew. It's crazy. So when I watched Roland Martin use this lure, well, now I'm going to do exactly the same thing that he was doing, but in my way of saying, hey, this is the lure I use. You should come fish with me or try it. But that's what it helps for the pro staff thing. You know what I mean? Like, you have a network, you have people watching you, you have people that are in tune to what you're doing and what you're using. Use it, you know?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I think that, you know, it's very obvious that you have good work ethic and you're dedicated to trying to do everything that you can to build the business, and you have a plan for where you want to be and how you want to continue to grow that business. And it's very evident that it's not just a business for you, it's a passion for you.
Right.
And that you're willing to work as hard as possible for it. Is that something that you got from your dad? You feel like your work ethic?
Yeah, because growing up, I mean, I watched my dad, you know, active duty Air Force. When I was 7, he had a part-time job delivering pizzas at Domino's on his days off. Not on his days off, but when he got off of work, he was working on somebody's car, working on somebody's air conditioner. Nothing came easy for my dad, and I think nothing comes easy for anybody that really wants to accomplish a dream. You know what I mean? When really wants the dream to come true, you have to work hard for it. There is the 1% of the world where everything is given to them, but if you don't have that work ethic as an entrepreneur, in whatever business you start, fishing, clothing, whatever, it's not really going to work. You have to accept that, hey, I'm gonna stay up late, I'm gonna get up early, and be willing to just do what that guy is not willing to do. You know what I mean?
And success is just that. It's succeeding at something
you're
trying at.
Trying to failure. But the problem, so there's pros and cons with social media, is that social media only shows the good side of it. Now, I wish other people could see the 1,000 times people told me no, or some of the trials that I've went through with trying to get a boat or trying to get the sponsorship or trying to some of my clients, they're rough, you know. So all those things go with being successful, you know.
And you're running long hours too. Like, that's one of the things, like, you're doing some 2 trips a day, 3 trips a day. You're waking up really early in the morning. So, you know, somebody sleeps in, they wake up, they drink a cup of coffee, and they click through Instagram and they see these photos of fishing. They're like, oh, that's awesome. But
right.
At 5 a.m. when you're working on the boat or making sure everything's set up, I mean, it's long hours.
They don't see that.
They don't see all that.
And I try to show that a little bit to show that, hey, this is how it is. Or like, I pick up my client at this time, and the first thing I show is like we're cruising to spot A or spot B, just to see that, hey, you know, if this is something you're looking to do, like, you got to get up early and chase it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And how is the team? You talked about, I know you guys are a team together, and you work in marketing and social media, videography, which is very convenient for somebody like Lionel. But then, you know, I know that you guys are a team, but Lionel, I know you've talked to me too, like, you have a kind of even a broader team than that. How does that factor into what you guys are doing?
So our team, let me just kind of go back to that. So she's a genius at the marketing, and she does marketing for several restaurants and other companies throughout Florida. Where we're great at is that I have this don't tell me no attitude. Like, you know, I'm really, really impatient. Like, if I go out to try to make this partnership, I'm like, well, I'm gonna knock on your door until you tell me yes, right?
And if you tell me no, I'm gonna go find somebody that's gonna tell me yes.
Or I'm gonna come back to you 100 times until you tell me yes, because one, I believe in my product and I like your services or whatever you have to offer. I think we could really genuinely work good together. On the other hand, hers is like, I'm gonna build this and I'm gonna wait for people to come to me, and I'm just like, I can't wait for that. Like,
that's good yin and yang, right?
Yeah. So it's a great partnership because
he's always like, why didn't we do this yesterday? Come on, where's it at? And I'm like, just be patient. It's gonna happen. It's gonna come.
And
but
I'm like, right now.
I'm just like when we met, right now.
Right now.
In some ways, you know, we've talked a little bit about like the social media and the online, you know, sometimes that's a little bit of a long game because you realize like you're not just going to necessarily build some huge following overnight, and you have to be willing to be patient and willing to engage with somebody and realize that you might engage with them online 6, 7, 8 times before they actually come and fish with you. You got to be willing to do that.
Right.
And that's not for everybody, but it's very obvious you guys work well together on all of that.
And I'll say my social media influence comes from a lot of her telling me, well, I should do it like this. And one of her biggest things that she gave me advice is that for anybody out there with a following or is trying to gain a following is that, and that doesn't, it's kind of hesitant about Instagram, it's kind of hesitant about YouTube or Facebook. Look at it this way. Look at it is that you have a mobile commercial for your business 24/7, right? How often are you up late looking at this? Or what time do you wake up early to go on the trip? And you might get ready to post a photo. You know, how many other people are up getting ready for work? I think there's a huge percentage. I want to say it's like, I looked this up last week. I want to say it's like 73% of Americans, the first thing they do when they wake up is grab their phone and check their Facebook and Instagram, right?
Yeah.
So if you use that tool and that power for your network, people that are watching you to see what you're going to post next, after a couple of months, a couple of years, that number is going to grow to more clients for you. Because
for essentially free advertising.
Exactly. And if you build it that way, you know, people are going to get attached to you because now they want to see you succeed. They want to see what's next. They're going to watch you grow, and they're going to watch you like, man, I really want to go fishing with this guy, because it seems that my client or his clients are, one, they're having fun. And that's the most important factor to my business, that we're having fun. And two, it seems like he's on the water quite a bit. So what is he doing that's right? So if you use social media as a power and a tool for your business and not quote unquote social media, then I think it's a really good tool for you to have, because now you're not paying for a Yellow Pages ad, which is 1990s, I'm sorry, or someone to build a commercial for you. You know what I mean? Everything about social media, if you want it to work for you, you can build your own content if you're willing to put in the work for it. You know what I mean?
And what are the best steps and practices for trying to, if somebody's listening to this and they're going, yeah, I want to do better on that, like what's the best kind of pathway towards that?
So I think a lot of people get hung up on social media because they don't think they can put the time into it or the effort into it. And studies are showing now that what used to be more curated and, you know, professionally put together feeds, people are now craving authenticity. So because you think you don't know or have the skills to do a bomb commercial that's professionally produced, well, the authentic, you know, selfies on your phone and stuff like that are getting just as much traction, if not more now, because people are craving that in the moment authenticity, because Instagram kind of went through this whole transition of, instead of iPhone photos, now we're doing professional photo shoots and loading that onto our feed. But now the authentic stuff is really starting to play a part. So I would say don't be afraid to put that stuff out there. It doesn't all have to be professionally curated and stuff. And I am a huge proponent of your Instagram feed being like a second website. So instead of just showing one part of your business, remember there's everything you would put on your website should also be reflected in your social media, like hitting all aspects of what you do.
And that I've definitely seen a lot of people be hesitant to go into it because they just feel like they won't be good enough at it. And these are guys who are incredible fishermen. I mean, they know how to fish, and they're great at working with clients, and they're just a little hesitant on the technology side. But what you're saying is really encouraging, that people aren't necessarily, it's a lot to ask somebody to be a great fisherman, a great guide, and a great web designer or photographer. So you're saying that people are like, even a photo that's not the perfect photo, but just real life photo, that's doing just as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people feel like they have to post in the moment, where if you're on a charter or you're fishing out in the water, snapping a few photos here and there or taking a few videos and then waiting until you get off the water at home after dinner to post them is totally fine. I think they get overwhelmed thinking I have to take the picture and post it right now, and I can't because I'm on the boat and there's another fit. Like that's the least of your worries. Get the content and then you can post it any time of day.
Are there times that are better than others for people to post? Like if you are trying to be strategic, I know that's, I don't want to get too,
it's all right.
I don't want to get too deep in the secrets here or anything.
No, I was going to say that's like the most asked question I get when I'm talking to people about social media. I have a few different takes on this because I run so many Instagram accounts. You can actually, I think you can actually train your feed to what time works for you. An example being some of the accounts I run, there's 3 or 4 that I post consistently between 9 and 11 a.m. And after a few weeks of that, 9 to 11 a.m. became my best time to post. But I was consistently doing it every day. So I was getting the engagement at that time. And then Instagram just started realizing that was the best time. So if I would post on that account at 3 p.m. or 4 p.m., the content would tank.
Okay.
And so that's my one take on it. If you really have a time of day that you like to be on there, posting consistently there at that moment, over time is going to make that your best time. But in the general scheme of things, I say like in the morning, right when people get to work, so 7 to 9. And then I like noon while they're on their lunch break, or anytime after 5 p.m. when they're home with their kids.
I think the biggest thing she said was consistency.
Consistency, yeah.
Consistency. I think that's a key word for entrepreneurs, period. Be consistent. About Instagram. So before I started mine, I went fishing with a guy named Willie Lee out of Melbourne, Florida, or Titusville. And we went he was a fly fishing guide. Long story short is that when I fish with people, I take notes of what they're doing that's successful for him. And Willie had a Canon on his boat, right? So when we caught a fish, he would take a nice photo, right? And I was like, well, that's pretty sweet. When am I going to get that back, or when am I going to see that? And he was like, well, I'll post it in about a week. And I was like, a week? But he took time to take that photo, take the camera out of his thing, get it squared, take the photo back home, edit it, make sure it's clean, and then post it. And I thought that was really sweet. I was like, man, what if I could do this for my clients? Take a really nice photo, teach myself to edit, and then email it to them or post it on my Instagram so they can see it. And that's just another aspect of customer service that I found that works for me.
Yeah.
All right.
And I had a similar experience in Mosquito Lagoon where it was the same thing.
Yeah.
Part of the package was taking photos, and then they sent them in. And if somebody you don't have to be a perfect photographer. You don't have to be a professional. Just be consistent. You can do it after dinner. You don't have to do it on the water with your client, because I know you have a policy about not being on your phone with your client. Right. But
well, let me throw that disclaimer out. I'm not on the phone. I am on the phone, but I'm not. I will not take a call from one of my friends that's like, I won't take that. The only calls that I will take are from my lady, from my family, because obviously they know if they're calling, I know that it's an emergency. Yeah. Right. Now I am on my phone because I want people. A lot of my clients are coming from Instagram, and so they want to be on the story.
Yeah.
So that's the only time I'm on the phone, is taking a story, because I feel that if you came fishing with me and you're paying $500 or $600 and I'm on the phone talking, like that's not cool. You're not paying that time. Like, I want to be totally involved with you, your conversation, and us fishing. You know what I mean? So that's the only time I don't answer. Otherwise, I don't answer the phone, or I'm not on my phone.
That's a good policy. And I know, like you were talking about, okay, I'm going with another guide, I'm studying, I'm trying to, we've seen that common theme over and over again.
Right.
If somebody says that they want to get better at taking photos, what are some tips that you have, or maybe any apps that you use to edit photos, or just anything that could help them there?
So there's a place, it's called creativelive.com. It's an online learning website. It teaches you any kind of program you want to learn about. You want to learn about Sony cameras. It has 15, 30 minute to an hour long chapters. It's a school. It's an online school for multimedia. So whatever you want to learn about when it comes to editing, photos, videos, creativelive.com. And this isn't a plug. I'm not associated.
You're not on pro staff.
No. I'm not associated with them. But for me, it's like the way I've learned, I've always had to teach myself how to do something. So when I would see all these guys posting, and there's some really good guys out there that take a lot of, and I don't have their permission to say their names, but obviously I studied their website or their Instagram, and I was like, man, how the hell do they do that? Like, you know what I mean? Because they're really good photos. So I just started doing research, obviously my lady's in the videography world, and she helped me with the cameras, but she didn't teach me how to use them. Like I studied on my own, and she saw plenty of nights where I got frustrated, and I was like, well, babe, can you just make me a note sheet? Because I don't understand what this number makes this blurry and that number makes, this. And I'm like, man, this is, I'm getting a headache.
But it goes back to persistence.
Persistence. Don't give up on it. Don't give up on it.
It's okay too. And that was something that I even talked with Tom Rowland about this, but like, you also just have to be okay being an amateur at something. And if you're, or in weight training, like you just got to be okay starting somewhere and then just say, okay, I'm looking for progress. I'm not going to, the first time I decide, okay, I'm going to take photos now for my clients and they're not perfect. So I guess I won't do it. It's like, you got to start somewhere.
I think today's day, it's hard for anybody to start because there's so many trolls online. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you put your photo or your video up in front of everybody. That's a very vulnerable state for anybody. You know what I mean?
And how did you push through that though? Like, how do you, like, you talk about persistence, but like,
my dad was like, yo, stop being a bitch.
Yeah. And you were like, okay, and then you got it tattooed on your arm.
Yeah. Yes.
But
no, man. All right. So honestly, it all goes back to fighting, man. In fighting, I fought in Biloxi quite a bit. And a lot of the guys that I fought were from there. Right. And then I had two really amazing coaches. Danny and Daniel are a huge part of my life. Just a side note, Danny's like this pit bull. He's very like, boy, do it right now. Get up. And Daniel's more comforting and wants to listen to you. But when you've gotten booed in front of 3,000 people, like stuff like that just doesn't bother you. And then I lost my first fight.
A teenager commenting on your video. This video sucks.
Yeah, like, all right, man. Well,
I like my video over your not video.
Great. And then probably the most embarrassing moment of my life was that my first loss, I got the brakes beat out. I got the brakes beat out of me in front of my dad. Like, and the fact that it happened in front of my dad, then you have to stand in front of that, in the middle of that cage and watch your opponent's hand be raised, like it's a very humbling feeling. So I figured if I can go through that and the divorce that my parents went through, like your words aren't going to really bother me. And then I've been through some pretty, I've had some people say some pretty messed up things to me or about me when it comes to race. But I'm just like, well, if I could deal with all that, man, trolls are nothing.
And you chalk it up to a problem with them. Not with you.
And stay focused on going back to that moment when you're a kid, and sneaking away with a bag of bread. Like you got into this because you love this, and I think that's so easy because it's like, look, like if you're being a fishing guide or you're fishing because you just want the approval of everybody,
then it's not gonna work.
No,
like my dad told me,
you should just start selling ice cream.
You don't need any.
If you want everybody to like you, just start selling ice cream.
Well, I don't like ice cream, man.
Now all of a sudden you can't even win there.
Right.
But and
that goes back to like what I said in the beginning. Like you don't need any man's approval, but you want to work hard to get that man's respect.
Absolutely,
right?
I think that's a huge part.
Second thing that helps me get through all that is, I mean, I can come home and I can talk to my lady about anything.
Yeah.
About anything. I could vent. The problems that I'm not allowed to put on Facebook because of, obviously you run a business, you don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
I talk to her about it. You know what I mean? And so that, all right, well, we talk through it. She says, well, just do this or do this or do that. And I'm like, well, thank you. And we go on to the next day. So building that backbone is hard, but you got to understand if you're getting into the social media world, which I think everybody should if you have a business, is you're gonna deal with that.
Yeah. And ladies give the best feedback. Like when you're in a relationship, like the other person is always going to give great feedback. It's like real constructive criticism. Like,
I'll tell you how it is, man.
Some 14-year-old saying, yo, your video sucks. Like that doesn't help you. But like somebody saying, hey, if you would have taken this photo this way, or if you would have done this. And, I think that's a great testimony too, to like the power of teams. We'd love to transition into some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And I know Austin has some pretty good ones too.
Let's do it.
But one of the ones I wanted to start with was, I know that you're a well-rounded angler. You do a lot of different types of fishing. You got the Pathfinder with the second tower.
I love the tower. I'm up there all the time.
Yeah, and I know that it seems like you target redfish the most.
Okay.
Maybe is that right?
I target redfish a lot, but essentially the most that I do is actually golf trips. Because I do a lot of family trips. But what I guess that's the perception it is, because one thing I really, really try not to do is focus on quote unquote the board catch. Like I don't really,
Yeah.
I try not to. Every now and then you will see me like post or do a story of like 15 vermilion snapper and a couple, but those are fish that are dime a dozen. Like
Back
they're
at the
there.
dock, everything's dead.
Yeah, that's not my that's not my style. Not to if that's what you built your style on, then that's great. But I'm speaking on terms of my like my style is not that. Like we're gonna catch some fish, to eat, but I'm not gonna I don't want to build that expectation for me.
Yeah.
I want to build the expectation of fun. We're gonna
That's great. Yeah, that's super helpful. And then with like targeting the bull reds, I think I texted you a joke earlier this year and was like, "Can you guys even catch a slotfish over there?" Like, because we were catching slotfish, but
well, she was on the boat though. That's all her.
Yeah. But like for you, like if you're working a school of redfish,
Okay.
how can you walk us through your approach on how you work a school of redfish, and how do you know if there's too much pressure on that group and you need to move on?
It's a really good question. So before I got my tower boat, I had a 22-foot skater. So I had to be real cautious about finding the fish because I wasn't up on the second station where I could see them from 2 miles. So I really had the practice of being patient. And first spotting, I wouldn't try to find a single fish at that point because a single fish for me on that boat while I'm running the trolling motor was just out of the question. Like it was going to be a hard catch. So I would try to find a school of like 5 to 10. And then the first thing when I did find that school, I was just kind of figure out which way are they moving. And because you have clients on the boat at this point, you got to understand clients aren't going to close compartments really quietly. They're not going to step softly.
Definitely
right?
not in Destin either.
Right,
Yeah,
no.
I mean, you could just pick a lot of people out. It might be their first time.
Right,
Yeah, I get
right.
that.
So they don't understand. They don't understand that aspect of it. And then the clients that want to do the casting for themselves, I'm like, well, all right. So this is what I have to do. I have to figure out which way that school is moving. Kind of account for like redfish are probably going to turn around at some point. They only go so far. So I would try to just kind of guesstimate how long they were moving for, which direction they were moving, and try to put myself at least 50 to 60 yards in front of that school. But then at the same time, I wasn't using, we're sight fishing on the beach, so I didn't anchor up. So I would have to account for the wind pushing me away and then have to readjust to get back in front of the school to where they were crossing my path right at the same time. So the customer can get at least 4 or 5 good shots before I have to go in there and do the casting for them and get it like that. And so with that it taught me really how to be patient. And with the tower, it just gave me a really good advantage of like, all right, now I'm up here. I can see them from a mile. I'm going to stay so far away from them, figure out where they're moving, and then kind of just, take that same approach of getting myself in position to where that bait is crossing their face at like a 45 or whatnot. But if it doesn't cross at a 45, I still got so on and so forth, a 12 o'clock shot, so on all the way on. So they can get multiple shots on them.
Yeah. So you just recently got a new boat. Is that something you looked for when buying it?
You want to talk about this? Yeah.
The tower was his non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like we wanted to get a boat. Originally, like I was looking at a 23 foot and I was like, man, I really like this boat. And she was like, listen, you need to get the 26. Like you're not going to be happy with the smaller boat.
I just didn't want to go through the boat buying process again in 2 years when he decided 23 wasn't big enough. Because I knew he loved the 26 that he ran last year. So that was going to be the boat. And he now loves it so much, he jokes he's not going to come home. He's going to sleep on it.
Right. So the tower for me, not just for red fishing, but it's for everything that I do, the way I run my clients and try to put them on fish is a necessity. And why I say that is because once I come out the pass, one in the tower, if you're not in the tower, you're missing out on an opportunity for your clients to catch fish. And what I mean by that is that once I come out of the pass in the summertime, there are bonita everywhere. There are sharks everywhere. But sometimes, obviously, I can't see those bonitas from down there. It's hard for me, if I'm down on the lower station, I see those fish. Now I got to go up there and make a cast because I can't make a cast for them where I'm at driving the boat. But from up top, I can. And my philosophy to that is that most of my clients are from up north. So catching a bonita it's pretty exciting for them. It's exciting for me. Like they go on a long run, you know what I mean? Like I said, my approach to my business is fun first. And that kind of takes the pressure off of me because there's already 2 or 3 fish on the boat. Cool. So once I see them, I'm able to cast to them, get them hooked up, 2 or 3 at a time, and we're good. On top of that, I've caught 3 bonita. If I need the shark fish because it's a rough day, I have plenty of bait. So the tower is pretty, how would I say it? It's pretty standard for me. Like I'm up there quite a bit. Yeah.
And so you're talking about fun first. Like
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
an important part of it.
Number one.
Yeah, number one. And I know we talked about this before, but you got a lot of kids coming. You got a lot of first time anglers or less experienced anglers. Certainly in saltwater, you said Minnesota,
Right.
all these different states where people are coming through.
Well,
I mean, just tell us a little bit more about your approach there with fun first and multiple species. And
so I really take myself out of the equation and put everything into perspective. And what I mean by that is that a lot of my clientele is from up north. We said Minnesota, North Dakotas, Kentucky,
Ohio.
Yeah, Ohio's a big one. Kansas City now because they have a direct flight into Destin. Those Midwest, northern states that are really cold. Now, when I say put everything in perspective and take yourself and put yourself into their shoes, if they do fish, a lot of it is recreational and it's from the bank. So you're catching perch, smallmouth, and they're not very big. You know what I mean? Even if you're in the boat, now you're catching walleye. And some guys are the northern pike guys and will put up a big fight or whatnot. But for the most part, they're folks catching that's either never been or catching perch or something like that. So if my first fish to put you on is a bonita, regardless of like what you think, me and you fish all the time, we understand what that fish is, and it doesn't really, for us, it's a bycatch. But for them, man, that thing goes on a run and it's fun, man. I have some repeats that come with me every year just to go fishing for bonita, right?
I love it though, because we talked about that. It's like that's what they want to do.
At what point did we get better than bonita as fishermen?
Regardless, and then that's where it takes a lot of pressure off you as a guide first, because it's a pretty easy catch, especially, obviously when there's 1,000 of them, over here and then over there. So the fun first is I really put myself in their shoes. I'm like, what's going to fight really hard for them? They can talk about for years to come, and they want to come back and catch, So my trips typically start out with me coming out of the pass, finding school bonita, getting hooked up to those first, and then we'll go on to the wrecks. And then typically after that, we'll either circle back around to do some shark fishing, or we'll do, if the water's clear, we'll sight fish for redfish. But I typically book a 5-hour trip because that gives me the opportunity to cover everybody's needs. And what I mean by needs is that I have the guys that want to catch some fish that want to eat, and I got some guys that want to catch the trophy fish.
How do you figure out what somebody wants? So, because I know that for you, we were talking about fun first, but it's like you want to make sure for you, it's like you and I might not, like if I come fish with you, we're probably not going to just spend the day catching bonita.
No,
but it's like, but the thing is like, it's like, how do you figure out what they want to do? Because that's what you as a guide, you're concerned about giving your client the best day possible. How do you try to figure that out before they even get on the boat?
Honestly, a lot of it has to do with my Instagram. They see what I'm catching. So I guess one of the things that I'll tell people is like, when people come fishing with you, they want to catch what you're catching. They want to go do what you're doing. So if they're seeing my clients before them catch bonita, they want to go catch bonita. They're seeing sharks, they want to go catch sharks. So that's kind of how you filter it out right there. And then the second part of it is that Kaylee, she answers the phone and she kind of filters out for me right there. That's the second process.
You ask questions and stuff?
Yeah, we manage the expectations a lot because he comes home and fills me in on what's biting where. And so if someone calls and, wants to catch a Goliath grouper, I can say, hey, we don't have those in Destin. I want to make sure by the time
they're there, but I don't target those. Right?
Yeah, that's what I meant. We don't target those, but I want to make sure by the time they get on the boat that they're not expecting to catch stuff that we can't. When you reference the sailfish, like I'm not going to book him a trip if that's what they want. So I kind of vet that a little bit in our communications prior to booking.
Yeah, managing expectations seems to be, a super important piece. And then you'd rather always under promise and over deliver.
Right. Exactly.
We kind of find out what their ideal trip is. And then from there, how possible is that?
Do you just
this time
ask
of
them
year?
some questions on the phone, or
Right,
do you have a
right.
form online when
Yeah.
they sign up? Or
Both. We push Captain's Choice a lot, because if they're just trying to have fun, which is what we promote, we let him kind of pick the fish we're targeting that day based on what's biting now, what's moving through, what the last week or two of fishing has been like.
And
So-
that takes the pressure off people that are flying in or they're on vacation and they don't know the area. They don't know the fish they
Right,
want to catch. They just
right.
want to catch fish.
So for where I'm at, and it kind of takes the pressure off of me of going and get quote unquote a meat trip, because from where I'm at, folks are flying in for about 6 days, right? So if I go get a buttload of fish, clean them for you, like what's the chances of you really cooking them all? I don't want any fish to go to waste. You know what I mean? So that's another thing that we vet. And at the beginning of the trip is I talk to, if it's a group of 4, I ask them right when they get on a boat, like, hey guys, this is what we're doing. This is what we can do. Is there anything that you guys would like to do? And then have this desire to catch. And believe it or not, a lot of the answers are sharks. You know what I mean?
I get that. Shark Week is one of the biggest
Shark
things
Week
on
is
TV. Yeah,
man,
and
I love Discovery Channel for promoting Shark Week because sharks are fun to catch. You know, it's a novelty as far as like, man, you only see these on TV, and like I said, perception, like not perception, but put yourself in their shoes of what they can't come down here and fish for redfish every day, trout every day. They can't do that. So what's something that's on TV a lot that like, man, I would really love to catch that, or like have like sight fishing for redfish, or we're getting ready to go through a period where there's tarpon on the beach, there's jacks on the beach, you know, and jack is a really fun fish to catch.
I love jacks. And my 2.5-year-old is obsessed with sharks.
Yeah,
she has tons
you know,
of sharks
kids.
booked when we go out. And I've been on the boat with some clients before and seen people freak out about a shark more than 50, 100, or 100 redfish. You have a school of 100 redfish. You and I are going,
because
they are, and they're going, is that a shark over
Yeah,
there? And I mean, but that's what they want. That's what
redfish on Discovery Channel
Yeah.
per se. There's not a
Yet.
week
Well,
vetted
actually,
for.
yeah.
There's not a week for
There's not
redfish
Redfish Week, yeah.
right. There's
And-
no redfish week. You know what I mean?
And what are some other ways in what you do to try to accommodate to people who are kind of like that? I know you like to stop by and show them some dolphin. And
So for me, man, I love the dolphin aspect because when you see them on photos or whatnot, you don't realize how big these creatures are and how intelligent they are. So after we've met everybody's needs of like catching this, we got some fish in the cooler to eat. We've went and targeted. I say targeted because you're gonna look at these fish and they're huge, these redfish, but you're not gonna always catch them. We've made the effort to. I think just going to find a pot of dolphins and to just mess with them and play with them is the end. How I almost end all of my trips because, like I said, I've put myself in their shoes. Like you're coming from up north where your spring is still full of snow. You don't get to see stuff like this every day. You know what I mean? Like you don't. It's not something you see every day. So I try to make the trip from the time you get on the boat to the time you get off a great experience for me. Actually, the dolphin part is still fun. It's probably still one of my favorite parts of the day because the other day I had Dylan. It was his birthday, and for some reason I just feel like when you put that energy out there, like the atmosphere knows. It probably sounds crazy, but I'm a real energy guy, and these dolphins just knew it was his birthday, and they came straight to the boat. And they came up, and he would pat the water and all that stuff, and they would come in and out of the water. And for that 7-year-old and his mom, it made the day. You know what I mean?
It probably made their life.
Right.
yeah,
Because
people love that though, and
right.
they want to put it on their social media and show their friends back at home. And
But you didn't have to go to SeaWorld to get that experience.
And the ability to put yourself in the client's shoes and try to anticipate their needs and manage expectations, that's great. And I know there's a lot of guides who, they struggle with that. And I think that's a good practice to have with your business.
I think all that practice came from my upbringing as far as being in the military, traveling so much. I can relate to a lot of people in different ways. I've talked to
maybe even being new to something, because if they're,
experiences
of what I've done. I've me going fishing with other folks. It's I saw what they were doing right, and I've taken it and made it my own brand. And that's why I tell anybody young, like, go live life, go get these experiences so that when you get to this point in your business and point in your life, you can relate to a majority of the people, except instead of being in this one lane that you can only talk to.
Yeah,
You know?
and that's a good segue to my next question. And this is either in fishing or in your career path. But what's something you're currently curious about and trying to learn?
What do you say is next?
Video and editing.
Yeah, I really YouTube is the next thing for me, is because growing up watching Roland Martin, Blair Wiggins, all these guys have their own TV show. I would love to have my own TV show one day, but the way the way it is today is I don't necessarily have to have a network to produce my own TV show.
Yeah.
YouTube is amazing, and it's not.
So you're trying
anywhere.
to learn that yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that it goes back to the creative live that you talked about. He's in the off season at the computer for 6-8 hours a day, learning step by step and practicing and teaching. And I think that's part of the business ownership that people don't talk about, but he's putting in all the hours. And I know he hates to stay inside, but that is how driven he is to learn how to do this professionally. So
Right.
You get your laptop, go sit outside.
But if it's nice outside, I'm trying to go fishing.
That's
so,
a good point.
right?
Yeah, that's
Right.
it's hard to do. It's hard for me to
It's-
do anything for 6 hours with a screen, but you know.
I'm teaching myself every day because I want to be able to produce my own content. I want to be able to have control of my own content. And eventually I'm going to have I could say that we're close to sealing a deal. We're about to have a scissor reel recorded, edited, and done, and then presented to several networks to see how that goes. We're right there, but still, YouTube is for me is the best way to go about things. That's what I'm working on right now. I'm getting ready to start a nonprofit. So there's a couple of things.
Well,
you know?
what's the nonprofit going to be?
All right, so I grew up I wouldn't say poor, but I wouldn't say wealthy, you know? And for kids that haven't had the opportunity to go fishing, or my father played a huge role in my life, very, very big role. So father and son trips are very significant for me. So my nonprofit is going to be based around kids that maybe in like the inner city have never been fishing, have never had that experience, but if they gone before me or before me and want to get more into it, how do they go about it? Because this industry can be very one-sided, and it could be very like what's the word? Closed, you know. It could be very hard to step into this industry if you're not on the water every day growing up.
And
you know what I
if you
mean?
don't
Like, I'm
have,
trying to say this in the most politically correct
exclusive.
way. Yeah.
No, I know
Right,
that.
right.
I've seen that a lot, and I've seen a lot of people struggle too. Just the learning curve. Like when you grow up in it, like I grew up in it, and it's like there's just hours and hours and hours and hours of my dad teaching me little things, and then you have somebody who's 19, 20, or whatever. Maybe they're 40, whatever. It doesn't matter. But like they don't know as much. It can be really intimidating to get in.
Started,
and what do you buy? And I think that's a really cool idea to take kids who wouldn't normally get that experience, take them out
and show them that you don't have to be an athlete to go make a good living. Second thing is I am a vet, so we're gonna focus on vets struggling with life after the military, PTSD. And the last thing is that I won't say the last thing, but I do want to tell a story. Is about 4 years ago, I took a young man named Tripp out fishing. Tripp has Down syndrome. Before I met Tripp, I had a real struggle with being around persons with special needs. I didn't know how to treat them. I didn't know how to talk to them. I felt very uncomfortable around them.
Just intimidated by
Right, because you don't really know what to say, and I think a lot of people feel that way. But when Tripp got on the boat, man, all I could pray for was that, man, I hope we catch some fish, and I hope we catch some fish. I hope he has a good day. But of course, it was in the middle of August. It was hot. We had an afternoon trip. We didn't catch anything. But Tripp, from the time he got on the boat, he stood by my side, and we laughed, and we talked, and we joked all day. And that was really the icebreaker for me, because at the time I was struggling to figure out what I want to help people. Flat out, you know, if you take away this fishing business, you can have it as long as I'm able to help people. And Tripp opened my eyes to what it means to talk to somebody and be around somebody with Down syndrome. Like how people treat how people look at them at the end of the day, how people are really uncomfortable with having that conversation because they don't know. Like you're not educated you're not around that all the time. So once I met Tripp, he opened my eyes to a lot. So I got involved with an organization called the ARC, and we started to work together last year. And every first Thursday of the month, every third Thursday, right? Every third Thursday of the month, we would take 3 individuals from their organization, and they all had Down syndrome, and we would take them fishing. Wow. And we would catch catfish all day. Here's the catfish reference again.
Back to the catfish, being a kid,
Being a kid. And we would sit in the harbor, and we would catch catfish after catfish after catfish. Now, mind you, all these other guys that have been in the business for years come in and out of the harbor, and they would just stare at me like I got some of the ugliest looks you could think of. And like I didn't care because a person with Down syndrome, one, they're very unfiltered. You know, right? Yeah. They'll say how it is, but to see their face light up.
But they're genuine.
Genuine.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. That's what I mean by unfiltered. Is like to see their face light up from catching a catfish reminds me every day of my first catfish with my dad. So I've partnered with that organization, and that's what my foundation is going to be based around. Is that if I can, I'm going to try to make some kind of change to show, hey, these persons are part of society. You know, they've grown up a little different. They have a few challenges, but they're no different from you and I. So that's where I'm going next with that. You know what I mean?
And I like the inner city thing too, because we've talked about this. There's not a ton of people who are black who are guiding.
You're right.
You know, and truthfully, just in fishing in general, and trying to open up fishing to where people, despite their background or their ethnicity, have an opportunity to go out there on that water and enjoy it.
Right.
How does that kind of factor into what you're doing as well?
I'll tell you, man, last year was probably one of my most trying years as an adult, because I had just quit my job and I took a position with a company named Ship Chandler. And when that happened, I had a lot of people just question, well, why would he do something like that? First, I did it because I wanted the experience. I knew I was going to get the opportunity to try to do 300 trips and see if like I can cut it. You know what I mean? And during that time, how do I say this? When I get out on the water, I don't turn my radio on. It's probably pretty dangerous, but I mean, I'm not too far out, or I'm not that far away from the radio, my VHS, to
send out
a signal. And plus, I carry the safety things that if you pull the button, it transmits that GPS. Yeah. So, but last year I had a moment where I didn't have my radio on, but when I got back I went to the marina and people were like, "Man, that was really messed up what so and so said." And more people started saying that. So more people started to text me. And then when I got back to my dock, the owner of the dock came out and was like, we had a conversation. And he said, man, that was really messed up. You know, there's no place for that. And for him to say that to me, I was like, well, damn, what did this dude say? You know, I didn't know, but it was pretty bad. And that's just kind of one of the issues that I've had to deal with being.
Just said some racist things on the radio.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And, but it's one of the things you have to deal with, but I've never in my career, whether it been a firefighter, a fighter, or a fishing guide, that I've ever used the black card, because at the end of the day, there are people that aren't going to like me because I'm black. There's going to be people that don't like you because you're white, and so on and so forth. And those people, I just don't have the energy for. You know, at the end of the day, when I get home, my lady's good. She's taken care of. My family, my dad's good. My sister's good. And if anything that happened to my sister, I was financially able to take care of her kids.
So for you get back to the dock and you hear that something was said. You try as hard as you can just to not even feed into it at all.
Yeah, I go talk to my lady. Like, you know.
So you didn't even no response. I mean,
no response. At the end of the day, what am I gonna do? I have you have a lot to lose, but like, if you're still in this place where you have to take shots like that, and where it's like,
and at that point, you're letting it affect your business, too.
Right. You're letting another man affect your emotions, right? So I mean, if this was old school and I went and confronted him, you know, with cameras everywhere, like, what am I gonna do? Like,
I'm
gonna beat you up.
Try to be the bigger man,
right?
Try to take the high road and try not to.
Trust me, like,
you know. And I know that with like jujitsu, they talk about too, like when somebody's confronting you or trying to start a fight with you, like that person's not even worthy of your energy.
No,
like
and-
that
and-
person's not even. It's
And
you know,
it comes from all the experiences. Like I'll be honest with you, when I was in Panama City, or in my early 20s, I was really hot headed. You know what I mean? Obviously, I knew a few things where I could.
about fighting.
Yeah, you know. So but now it's just like, man, if I go do this to this guy or confront this guy, there's a lot of different ways it can go. If somebody records me in a face-to-face confrontation with this guy, you can manipulate that to where it gets bad. And now it's
well, now you're a businessman.
right, right.
Do you feel like
Everything
it's-
you've worked for.
So I just it's, and a lot of that comes from my dad, because I saw my dad go through so many struggles raising 2 kids by himself, let alone going to the store with my sister. Like people are messed up, man. So there's plenty of times where I could see my dad just broke down because he took my sister to the store, and people asked him, like, is that your daughter, or what are you doing with that girl? You know what I mean? Like it was messed up stuff. And to see my dad overcome
your
that.
dad's white.
My dad's black. My dad's
your
black.
dad's black.
My mom's Filipino, but
Okay.
the perception of it is like that wasn't his daughter.
Okay.
You know what I
So
mean?
She didn't physically look like
Look
his
like
daughter.
my dad. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's fine seeing my dad deal with that, and not. It just taught me, like, to just, and if I need to have a conversation with my dad that me and Kaylee can't have, or I feel like that's where I go to. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like it's getting better though? I mean, I know that you know some other guys who are black. Do you feel like it's getting better? Does it not feel that way right now?
I mean,
what?
honestly, I don't even pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah.
So if you have a problem with me because I'm guiding, or this guy's doing this because of the color of their skin, then whatever.
Yeah,
You don't
that's
want
your
their
problem.
business anyway.
Yeah, and you're not in the
it's
business.
not.
Yeah, you're not in the business of trying to change everybody's mind out in the world.
The only thing that I'm trying to change people's mind about is perception about persons with Down syndrome, and come on my boat and let's go have some fun.
That's awesome.
Because I've had people. I'll tell you one story, is that last year I had a young man book the trip, and I don't think his dad looked at the website. Matter of fact, I know he didn't look at the website. So when his dad got on the boat, I went to shake his hand. He didn't shake my hand.
Wow.
I was like, all right, man, this is going to be a really long trip. So for 4 hours, this guy would not talk to me. I tried to engage with him, questions that you had to answer, and he wouldn't do it. And I'm like, well, okay, I get what's going on here. That's fine. They caught some fish. I just move on to it. I vent to my lady and then go on about my business, man. The world is still ugly no matter how you put it. It's who you choose to put one around you and what you choose to give your energy to.
That's good.
And if you give your energy to negative people, you're going to have a negative outcome. If you manifest positive energy, you have a positive outcome. You know what I'm saying? And I love what you're doing here, because you have your friends involved. And that's what I have involved around me, One, my lady first, and then my friends second.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's very helpful. And I think no matter, everybody experiences some form of adversity, and we were joking earlier, but you can't please everybody.
You can't.
And
You can't.
but you can decide what you're going to give your focus and energy to,
Right.
and you can decide what you're going to respond
Right.
to. And
Right.
I
I mean, you just look at the way, I'm gonna be totally honest about it. There's black folks that support black-owned businesses. There's white folks that support white-owned businesses. And I wish it wasn't so prevalent. Like, people, I'm gonna go support a black-owned. Just support a good business. There's people that don't like
because you're not trying to. That's when, out of everything that you're trying to market, you're trying to market fun first. You're not trying to say, hey, come fish with me because I'm black. You're trying to say, hey, come fish with me because you're gonna have fun. We're gonna catch fish.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you look at my photos, you can see it for itself. You know what I'm saying? That's a portion of the business that I just choose to kind of ignore. You know what I mean?
And speaking of that, what for you is kind of the future of your guide business that you're trying to build out right now? You said you're trying to do the YouTube videos.
Yeah.
What does success look like 5 years or 10 years from now? You're looking back. What does success look like for you?
And what do you want to be remembered for?
Really, I want to be remembered for, one, helping. Like, I'm really involved, or I'm getting more and more involved every day in the CCA, and a lot of people are misunderstood about what the CCA is doing.
Yeah, could you explain what the CCA is?
Coastal Conservation Association they help the recreational anglers' rights, all right, and then they help. In short, there's a lot of things that CCA does, but they help restock Florida. So CCA has a great program called Adopt a Snook, which is running down in Southwest Florida. And they also just restocked about 10,000 redfish in certain parts of Central Florida. So I think overall in the last 6 months, they've done about 30,000 redfish. What I'm trying to do is bring the Adopt a Snook, but make it Adopt a Redfish and raise a certain amount of money to restock my area of fishing. You know, so when I'm done with this fishing, they're gonna say, well, he did a lot for Florida and he did a lot for people. I can care less if there's a world record that I catch. I can care less if they say he was the greatest redfish guy, tarpon guy, whatever. He did a lot for humanity. That's my goal, and did a lot for Florida. That's it.
And if people want to follow you and keep up with what you're doing, what's the best way for them to do that?
Obviously Instagram is where I make a lot of, and that's just under my business name, Lion's Tail Adventures. Together, like I said, my lady is right there with me. We have our own page, Anglers in Paradise, YouTube, Lion's Tail Adventures, and then the website is liontailadventures.com. But I tell everybody, like, I'm very, like, follow me on Instagram, send me a message. You have a question, but the problem with Instagram is that people want quick responses, and I don't respond right away. Like, but I will respond because I want to talk to you. I want to get your insight.
Yeah, it's hard to do that when you're on the water for 18 hours a day.
and then you're trying to go to dinner, you know, and you're trying to
and then
be
sleep,
present.
and then get up and do it again.
But there's different ways, and just like I hope this is an experience for all of us. Like I really appreciate you having us here, but for us, it was a 3-hour drive that we got to spend quality time together. You know what I mean?
Well, I appreciate you coming out and being a part of this and encouraging us at the beginning. And, you know, we're just trying to have fun, trying to learn,
this was dope.
Yeah.
This was dope.
Is there anything as we close out that you want to say or add?
Is there anything else you guys want to ask?
That was great. I mean,
I had this prepared in my head a while ago. I just tell anybody out there that's hesitant about starting, if you have any questions, contact me. Like, let's talk about it. 2, don't be afraid. What you manifest is what you get. So,
starting a business, starter guiding.
Either or. Yeah. Either or. I'm all, like, there's a lot of guys that won't help other guys start a business, but I will. Like, if you need help, like, I'll help you. You know what I mean? Because I don't believe, Kevin Hart is one of my biggest role models. I watch his videos. I believe in the teamwork makes the dream work. You know what I mean? If you're selfish, and I understand that people have their own teams, and I can only give you so much information, but to get started, I remember when I was asking 1,000 questions to people and they wouldn't answer me. So I try to answer as much as I can and help as many people as I can. You know,
I appreciate it. And I appreciate that spirit of just, let's have fun. Let's build great businesses. Let's have great people around us.
Absolutely.
And, you know, put our energy in the right place. So thanks so much for hanging out with us today
No
and giving
problem.
us a little bit of that energy.
Thanks to the both of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thanks again for listening to the Captains Collective. If you're enjoying this podcast and willing to help us out, please take a moment to share this on social media, maybe text some friends, or possibly give us a review on whatever platform you're listening to. All your support goes a long way. Thank you guys again for listening. This is the Captains Collective.